What I will say is that whilst to us, as an individual guardian who has literally killed multiple gods in their time, it's not a big threat. I do love that the tower and the apparatus around it is taking it seriously. And that kind of feeds into what I think is probably the best thing this season has done, which is to do with the helm and the
Yep.
team that's established to deal with Keitel, right?
hmm
Vanguard operations are technically some kind of military operation being done with jurisdiction and code names, you know? When Operation Piccolo or Operation Stormcode or Operation Intrepid go live, you're
Oboe.
actually running, yeah, or Operation Oboe or something along those lines. Operation Baby Dog. When one of those goes live, you're actually part of a military operation with the Vanguard. But it's never felt like it because strikes are so samey. But
Yeah.
when you jump into the helm, and Zavala introduces everyone of the team and says these are their roles. You know, Amanda is on air support as she always is, a great pilot. Osiris is assisting in the and advising in the background because he no longer has a ghost and he is weaker than everybody else as a result. You've got Crow providing ground recon, which is a great role for him to jump into because, of course, he's a hunter, and Saladin is leading the assaults generally because he's got experience with that. You know, this was the guy who organized the defense at Twilight Gap, and were it not for the Fallen pressing so hard, he would have been okay, and wouldn't have needed Shax to defend, perhaps. But, he has experience of this. He's an Iron Lord. Like, the fact that this team is assembled and you're at the center of it too, and you have your place in it, it feels really good because it feels like for the first time you're part of a special task force, which is realistically what the Vanguard should be doing for big threats like this. And, like, I like that as well because this is reminiscent of the Red War.
I was going
Like
to
at
say
the
that.
last
Yep.
yeah, the last time a Cabal fleet this large showed up on our doorstep, it meant the Traveler getting captured by the Cage. It meant us all losing our light. It meant us losing the city for about 2 months. And that's, the repercussions of that are still being felt in both human and Cabal terms. They are taking this seriously, as they should for a threat of this magnitude. And I think that's a credit to the story because it gets that scale correct. The helm is not something they've brought online for the High Celebrant because the High Celebrant was an odd threat being investigated by you, Osiris, Crow, and the Spider. It was concerning to Spider, and you're sent after it in the first place because he's losing his Glimmer shipments on the Tangled Shore. This concerns the whole system and all of humanity at large, and it's being given the appropriate reaction.
Yeah.
I do really enjoy that, and that's why I feel like the kind of base storytelling of this particular season, at least in terms of the feel of what you're trying to do, has felt so cohesive. Like there is a narrative here of what's going on and what you need to do and what your role in the plan is, and all of those pieces fit together perfectly.
Yep.
It's just, can't speak enough good stuff about that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the helm feels it, again, circling back to just the theme and the Cabal war theme they're trying to tell. It all fits in, having this kind of war room base of operations. It does feel like you're actually part of, instead of just being an errand boy guardian, feels like you're actually part of the war effort. And even the battlegrounds, it does, like, it fits the theme of that kind of trench warfare and these, like how real war is, especially more back in the old days. But you have these actual locations where there's conflict. Obviously, it's a bit more one-sided. It's us just floating around with war mine cells and Skyburner's Oath and just murdering Cabal. It's a bit one-sided. But it does feel like there's these actual isolated little pockets of war, and you're doing something. It feels a lot more cohesive than say Wrathborn hunts or most seasonal arena type thing. So just like,
and the bosses have like a stated role too. Like this is the other thing, okay? High Celebrant may have been making the Cryptoliths and may have been making an army for Shivu Wrath, but I have no idea what the High Celebrant does in the grander scheme of like Shivu's entire apparatus for things, aside from maybe making that army. If that's their role, that's great, but I don't even know what I can gather from the term High Celebrant, given the Hive's different culture. But when someone sits there and says these people are ascending to potentially become part of Keitel's War Counselor, you sit there and you understand how important it is to take out these commanders, because these are the future generals. These are the future leaders of the Cabal, and that gives you context to the bosses you're fighting. It's not just generic Fallen Wrathborn number 487. It's this guy is a Cabal, but he's a Cabal who has ascended to this rank, and at one point he could command thousands, he could command legions. And that's good, like, sure, I'm reading into that a lot because it's one of the things that I do as a guy who's very into the lore, but it feels like there's more purpose. And that's what's important at the end of the day. Like, having purpose behind a boss makes it that much more effective.
Yeah, it's just good to see, as we say, all the time. The story, there's one thing you can guarantee is good in Destiny, is the story and narrative, which is almost opposite of Destiny's launch in 2014, when that was one of the biggest complaints. But you know, obviously, depending on how much you've played Destiny 2, you might be getting bored of the gameplay loop or the core activities, Vanguard, Crucible, Gambit. But one thing that's almost guaranteed is just the actual story, the narrative is very cool and impressive. How much they can flesh it out is limited. I do wish, like, I wish they could just do tenfold more cutscenes. I just want so much more cutscenes because, as I'm sure you are well aware, there is so much good story in Destiny that is just that the average player is never going to see, and the average player isn't going to go onto Bungie.net and read the huge long blog posts or read the lore tabs. The best you're going to get is trying to follow the story and going on and watching My Name is Bife on YouTube and trying to get more information. But just the cutscenes, every single cutscene in Destiny, they're just so well made. And even if there were more, obviously I'm backseat game developing here, but even if there were the simpler, more animated, the sketchbook style that you see, I think this game could just do. I think a lot more of the players would be so much more interested in the story if there were just loads more cutscenes. Like, even gameplay is cool, but cinematics would be so cool to see more of.
I think the other thing that's really gone well, to the credit of both this season and previous ones, are the moments when you're physically in an environment, you're using your Guardian, you're moving around, and then the characters address you, and they're talking physically in the environment. You know, one of the better parts of the storytelling in Beyond Light are the dialogue bits between you, the Exo Stranger, and later on, as you acquire more stasis parts, Elsie's sister, Anna, which is really fantastic because you ultimately get these fantastic moments of actual character development where Anna is at first really quite amazed to see her sister is alive, and then just leaves because of the revelation of they're using stasis and you're using stasis, and I don't know what to do about this. I need time to think. You know, those are fantastic moments, but it's also brought to life because of the fact that it's not necessarily just in a cutscene. Like, you can actually see the characters in front of you, and that's, I think, the other side of what Bungie should look to do. And they already did it this season at the very beginning. The conversation between Crow and Osiris. If people missed that, you've missed out on something really fantastic, because that discussion between them not only tells you why, if you somehow missed the memo, Crow is wearing his mask, but also is just another really great example of just them fleshing out characters and giving them development and growth during tangible scenes. I think that's the reason why it works so well, is because it is tangible. You know, the characters are there in front of you and they will look at you and address you. And yeah, admittedly, there's a range to this, but like, to a certain extent, you know, they will track you within a small radius as long as you're not like standing in a silly position. Like, if you're over on a shelf, they're not going to look at you, but like within that small radius, it does feel like they're directly addressing you. So yeah, that's really good. Like, more of that stuff generally, and more of this storytelling outside of the vendors and outside of text dialogue. That's all really good. Like, I'm very, very pleased to see more of that.